Hello, and welcome to our informational presentation on understanding and using multi-factor authentication. In this presentation, we will be discussing the various forms of multi-factor authentication, their use in protecting both privileged users and critical resources on your systems. We will also be discussing the reasons for using multi-factor authentication, its forms, and how they come together to integrate with your current environment. I'm Michael Weisberg, your speaker today. My career spans 30 years and has carried me through most aspects of information security, and through the worlds of government, academia, finance, and industry. I hope you will find this to be both an interesting and informative presentation. The root of our problem is the continued use of passwords. Passwords were an artifact of the early days of computing, where the visibility of information was limited to private air-gapped systems. As we moved into the networked era, passwords became visible to a larger group of people and systems. The storage, encoding, hashing, and transfer of passwords became a major problem. In addition, the choosing of weak passwords made it easy for both people and machines to guess, and the increased computing power of computers made the brute force cracking of passwords a practical activity. A whole new string of attacks became reality. The social engineering attack, where the users were played upon giving up passwords by their own misunderstandings or compassion, became common. Often found in phishing attacks, users are convinced to turn over passwords, enter them into false logon screens, or even change them to known values. The password was also too easily shared. This prevented organizations from positively identifying a particular individual and preventing non-repudiation, the act of assuring that a transaction cannot be denied by an individual. For all of these reasons, resources secured with passwords were no longer assured of security or privacy. An alternative had to be found. The most common alternative is to use multi-factor authentication, or MFA for short. Although commonly available since the mid-90s, multi-factor authentication came into its own in the early 2000s with its general acceptance for authenticating remote access. Since then, the technology has improved, but the basic principle has remained the same. In its most basic form, two-factor authentication is performed by selecting two elements from a list of possible factors. The traditional factors are something you know, something you have, and something you are. In other words, a password or PIN, a soft or hard token, and a biometric like a fingerprint. More recently, two additional factors have come to be accepted. Somewhere you are, like a GPS coordinate, or a particular work location, and some when you are, like a particular time of day or shift. These last two factors can be used to differentiate access in and out of office hours and office situations. Two-factor authentication is a simple combination of any two of the listed elements. If it is desired, this can be expanded to three or more factors for highly secured information. While it would be best to use multi-factor authentication for all access, the most common use cases are for administrative and infrastructure protection. Most contemporary operating systems, desktops, and control systems provide interfaces for multi-factor authentication. In Windows, this is using the Hello interface or the Login GINA. On Linux, PAM files can be used, and on most control systems, Radius or other industry standard interfaces can be used for multi-factor authentication. These are all provided as authentication points standard in products. The factors chosen for each of these use cases can be identified and seen here. For the moment, let's focus on the desktop and server use case. First of all, you'll need a token. A token is something that gives you the something you have factor. This can be one of several forms. A soft token, like Google Authenticator, or an RSA soft token, is usually an application running on a phone or tablet or computer that provides some positive identification that the user is in possession of the device. It can take several forms: a time-based sequence of numbers yielding a one-time code, a connected app that requires validation, a certificate on a smart card, or even an event-based sequence generator. In the case of the rightmost example on this page, it can also give you a smart card and a challenge response, another way of making sure that you are in possession of the token. In some scenarios, a text message or email can be used as a second factor, but it is generally seen as weak, as SMS messages and emails are generally poorly protected. There actually is a role for the old password, and that is as one factor of authentication in a multi-factor set. Even in this case, old rules still apply. It needs to be hard to guess. It cannot be a common dictionary word, and must be long enough to not be easily brute forced. This picture is a good example of passwords that you should not use. Note that in this cloud, that the very prevalent, socially unacceptable passwords have been removed, so don't let that fool you. How strong is a password when used as a second factor? Well, let's think of an example that most of us use. With only a fixed token, your ATM card, and a 4-digit PIN, your bank is willing to give you $300. Banks are famous or infamous for performing risk analysis. So if your bank considers that to be an acceptable risk, consider how much stronger a time-dependent PIN and a 10-digit passcode is for identification. The final traditional factor of authentication is the biometric, something you are. This can include a fingerprint, retinal scans, facial recognition, handprint readers, and even, in extreme cases, DNA verification. The key to successfully building biometrics is understanding that they can vary greatly in accuracy and strength. The fingerprint reader on an iPhone X uses a 6x8 grid to gather 15 points of minutia about a fingerprint. The AuthentiPrint reader used by child ID programs views 70 points of minutia. This provides a broad variance on the accuracy of identification of the print. In terms of multi-factor authentication, the less accurate measure may be sufficient. Since the hash of the print is coupled with a second factor, it is the pairing of factors, as well as the strength of each factor, that provides the strength of the authentication as a whole. The same is true with other biometrics. There is another problem with biometrics. Biometrics themselves are personally identifiable information. One should strongly consider its use before being deployed for authentication. You can change a PIN or password. You cannot change your biometric profile information once it has been compromised. In environments that are highly secured, information is of great value, and in situations that place the user of the authentication at risk, for example, a corrections officer, biometric authentication should not be used. Consider that to a determined attacker, the value of a high-value asset, the compromise of a biometric information may include extricating it directly from the point of origin, i.e., directly from the individual who owns it, a finger from the fingerprint, an eye for the retina, etc. Not using biometrics is keeping with the old saying, never put any jewelry around your neck that is more valuable than your neck itself. The first of the newer factors is location-based services. This is often controlled by GPS for global positioning, Bluetooth for area services, or near-field for close-up services. Each of these can be used to enhance authentication by allowing or preventing access by general location, connection to a specific access point, or even door location access. This is particularly critical when a user must be in a particular location to access secure information. Most location-based services are used to control specific content and ensure that it can only be viewed in a particular location. Like location, time is an additional factor that's primarily used to control access, whether it is preventing access outside of business hours, performing extra tracking for late-night users, or allowing only limited functionality at particular times of day. Time-based services authenticate users with the aim of providing different credentials based on the clock. Time can also be used as a factor to require additional authentication. For example, an administrative user logging on during the day may require only a token and a PIN, but after hours they may also require a biometric or an out-of-band contact via SMS. While time is not generally used as a strong factor for initial authentication, it can be used to require additional factors at particular times. Now let's see how this actually works. We're going to look at two examples. First, an authentication using a soft token, in this case Google Authenticator, a time-based offline multi-factor solution. The authenticator is running on a cell phone and using free OTP. The platform to which we will be authenticating is a Linux server with Google Authenticator PAM modules installed. The second example is a Linux server, except this time we're authenticating using a cloud-hosted event-based authentication. The token is provided by a YubiKey plugged into a USB port on the workstation that is accessing the server. The YubiKey token can also use near-field to transmit authorization information to cell phones if necessary. In the soft token scenario, you see the normal sign-on that you would use every time you go to log on to the server. As you start as you normally would, you're prompted for your password. You enter the password, and then instead of being directly logged on, you are prompted for a verification code. You look up that code on your phone and enter the code for the current time interval. Once you enter it, you are then logged on. The situation is similar in the hard token scenario. You enter your password as before, except this time you are prompted to push the button on your security key. And as you see, as before, you are logged on. Both of these options provide strong authentication, requiring two factors. One is strictly local to the machine, and the other uses a network resource. To get multi-factor authentication into your shop, there are several support models that you can use. The oldest and most robust model is to have a vendor-operated product. This model often includes the purchase of tokens and either a subscription to a cloud-based service or the purchase and maintenance of a vendor proprietary piece of software. An example of this is the RSA Secure ID. It is a service where you would support an ACE server in your local environment and purchase ACE services from RSA. The next support model is to start with the purchase of tokens. This can be paired with the purchase of expert support or the use of internal staff to maintain and support authentication systems. These options can use tokens like the YubiKey, providing hard token support with a variety of both proprietary and open source backends. The final support model is to use a free authenticator, like Google Authenticator. This provides the tokens and use of either expert assistance or self-support for the issuance, management, and back-end processes. Whether you choose hard or soft token solutions, Garnet River can help you with your multi-factor design, deployment, and operation. Starting with design and startup through the ongoing support and maintenance, Garnet River provides expert services. Even the training of your staff for self-operation can be customized to your needs. Compliance with a variety of security domains require that multi-factor be included in your policy, procedures, and operational practices. If you need something special, please feel free to contact us. Thank you very much for your time. If you're interested in contacting us, please drop us an email or give us a call at the email and phone number seen here. Thank you very much once again, and happy computing.